Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider podcast. Joined as we are each and every week by Matt Hladek from thespun.com. He's a national editor and publisher who covers the National Football League. As you know, I cover the National Football League from the perspective of the Raiders. He covers it from the entire league. So we love to have him on just to kind of discuss the Raiders, the status of the NFL, and be able to get a little bit of a different voice for you because my voice isn't always the right voice. And we like to just hear from different perspectives. Matt, we'll dig right into it. Raiders 1-2. The two games they lost absolutely should have won. The game that they won, I think they had good reasons of why they shouldn't have. The point is, the Raiders want respect and they don't want people saying same old Raiders, same old Raiders. Well, then they have to win games that they're supposed to win. This is a team that's struggling, certainly not in free fall. Antonio Pierce comes out, makes very strong statements about business decisions, calling not the team, but calling individuals out. I love that. I think it's great. I think people who, sometimes fans just want to be critical because they want to hear their voice. But I love what he did. It's totally against the grain. Most coaches would never call people out like that. I love it. I understand where they're at, but there are 14 games left. If they fix it, there's no reason to panic, but certainly they have to be disappointed where they're at. I love your take on the status of the Raiders.
Well, I think that, Sunday especially. First of all, I don't know if there's a stat, if anybody that keeps track of the stat, but I would love to know what a team's record is the first game after firing a coach or making a quarterback change, because it does seem like a lot of times they get a little bit of a boost. You think of the Raiders last year after they get rid of, Josh McDaniels and they blow out the Giants and they're smoking victory cigars and all those things. I think they got victimized by that on Sunday. I don't think the Panthers are a good team. I think their roster is among the weakest, if not the weakest in the league, but they are a professional football team. And they didn't look like it in the first 2 weeks with Bryce Young. With Andy Dalton, they looked like an actual NFL team. They were able to do some things on offense. They were able to get some momentum. And I think once they came out with a good start, it snowballed a little bit with the Raiders. And it snowballed in a good way with the Panthers, where they just kind of kept rolling. Listen, I thought we both thought the Raiders would win last week. We both had them at 2-1 going into this game in week 4. Week 4 is critical because the Browns have talent. Their roster's not a bad roster, but their offense is a mess. And personally, I think after watching Deshaun Watson a lot in week 1 against the Cowboys, watching the whole game against the Giants on Sunday, I think eventually the best move for their team is to just gulp and bite the bullet and play Jameis Winston. I know Jameis Winston isn't an all-pro quarterback, but Deshaun Watson, you can make a case he's the worst non-rookie starter or backup filling in the NFL right now. So this is a game the Raiders they can win. The Browns have equal to or around the same talent level as the Raiders, but the Raiders, with the Browns playing poorly on offense, if the Raiders can get something on offensively against that good Cleveland defense, they can win.
The thing that gets me is I understand and I get there was a lot of disrespect nationally for this team. Okay. I mean, I saw a ranking that had Antonio Pierce as the 32nd head coach, which was just stupid considering who he beat last year and the guys who had never been head coaches ahead of him. That's true. That's disrespectful. But you never heard Antonio Pierce talked about it. He didn't come out and say this is ridiculous, just whatever. If you want respect, the best way to get it is to just earn it, to just go out and do what you're supposed to do. I know they cringe at the same old Raiders. I know that. I've talked to some of them about it privately. They cringe at it. And I don't blame them because I don't think this is the same old Raiders. But if you want to shut people from talking, just don't go perform like the same old Raiders. To me, this is an issue, and I love the way that AP handled it. I love the way he came out and called people out for business issues. I love our business decisions. I love the way we got our ass whooped. To me, it was just refreshing. There are no silver linings when you lose in the NFL. Let's not pretend. This is all about a winning league. It's all about winning. But when your coach responds the way AP did, I said I thought that was the only silver lining in Sunday's game. Where am I wrong?
I mean, I don't know if you are wrong because there wasn't much else to really take from it uh, to draw positives. I mean, they lost by 2 touchdowns at home to a team that most people are thinking is going to be competing for the number 1 draft pick. I do think that, I think no coach is going to call out guys by name in the media or single them out. It's a surefire way to lose a locker room. And Antonio Pierce knows that from playing for a long time in the NFL. But I did think that the way he handled it with saying some guys make business decisions and will make business decisions is a pointed way to get across like, hey, like, you better bring it. And if you're not bringing it and you're not giving the effort that we're expecting, you're going to be on the bench. And I think that that's important for a guy who's still in his first full season as coach to kind of establish that. It also is going to be about, to me, I think how they respond, because this week and next are winnable games. The
Yes.
Browns at home and then at Denver, who did have a nice win on Sunday, but still I don't think is very good. They're games that they can win. So if they bounce back and win both of those games and they're 3-2 going into that tough stretch of the schedule, well, yeah, you might be kicking yourself about giving away one of those opportunities early on, but you're saying, okay, at least we righted the ship and we kind of got things moving in the correct direction, going to the middle part of the season. So how they respond, I think that how he handled it in the moment was fine. And I think that, but the key thing about being a head coach is how do you get your guys to get back up off the mat and keep going and play better after taking a punch like that.
I totally agree. And here's the other thing, and I'm not making any excuses, but my philosophy. I give a coach 20 games because I think a coach has to, you got to evaluate the talent you have. You've got to look at some of your coaches. That allows you to go through a complete season and then to be 3 games into the next one before you really can make some credible thoughts on a franchise. But Luke Getzey's offense, this to me, Matt, makes no sense. You have the free agent quarterback that you wanted. They went and signed him. So to say that they didn't want him is untruthful. You have the backup quarterback that the franchise believed in and wanted to see in Aiden O'Connell. You've got Trey Tucker, Jacoby Myers, Devontae Adams, Brock Bowers, Michael Mayer, Zamir White, who was, after AP took over, one of the leading rushers in the NFL last year that can't get anything going, Alexander Madison. I understand that things have not been perfect, and I'm not saying that they should have been, but this offense has played 12 quarters this season, and essentially one and a half of them have they looked like an NFL offense. That sits squarely on Luke Getzey. That's on him. This is his offense, repeatedly throwing behind the change on 3rd down. I understand occasionally because you want to maybe think a guy's going to get yardage, but Nick Saban says this all the time: what you allow, you're coaching. So when it repeatedly continues to happen, they're coaching that. And we know that um, John Madden used to bemoan teams throwing behind the line of scrimmage on 3rd down. You can attack without taking unnecessary risks. If it's 3rd and 5, and you tell your receivers nobody better be less than 5, and nothing's there, you throw the ball in the dirt. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're consistently throwing on 3rd and 5 at 3 yards and not getting it, it's unexplainable to me. To me, Luke Getzey squarely under the microscope. This is a guy that, I mean, he's under the heat and should be with all of the talent. I don't think the Raiders should be the 2007 Patriots, but they just looked like one of the worst offensive teams in all of the NFL with all that talent. That's inexcusable.
I agree. I think that, especially, and I know that the lack of a running game has been probably one of the most problematic things early in the season. When you think about, they were able to run the ball well last year with not just Josh Jacobs, of course, but Zamir White after he took over that role. They basically beat the Chiefs on Christmas Day playing defense and running the football. I don't think they completed past the last 3 quarters or something it was. So they beat the Super Bowl champs on just literally defense and running the football. So I think if you're able to kind of get that going, um, it's a big thing. Now I don't know exactly how the Browns are going to play the Raiders this week, game plan wise. I know that at the beginning of last week's game against the Giants, the Browns have a good pass rush. Myles Garrett is tremendous. And they got some other guys, Darius Smith. They're, Myles Garrett's banged up, but he's still one of the best players in the league. The Giants were able to get them a little bit on dump offs and screens against pressure, and were able to move the ball there, which, creating those kind of easy yards, easy completions for a quarterback can make a huge difference, and it can kind of get you into a rhythm and gets you going. They have, the Giants have a playmaking wide receiver, Malik Neighbors. The Raiders have a playmaking wide receiver, Devontae Adams. So it's not like there's nothing to work with on the Raiders' offensive side of the ball. They just kind of got to figure out the chemistry, or figure out, what they're going to be doing, because I know offense is down league wide, but you have to be able to function in order to win games.
To me, if I'm Luke Getsy, I'm squarely under the microscope for all of that talent, for that offense to be that bad. I mean, it's his job to be the cook. I mean, Tom Telesco and Antonio Pierce have given him the groceries. And I'm not saying that they have the best offensive line in the NFL, but there are ways to work with an offensive line that isn't 100% healthy or isn't 100% effective. And clearly, this to me, the Raiders' biggest issue on offense is coaching. Now, you can talk about player execution, and that's fair. But he knew what he was getting into. And I keep going back to, this is the free agent quarterback that they wanted. This is the free agent quarterback that Luke Getsy, after a training camp, said, this is the guy I want to run my offense. There has to be accountability there.
No doubt. And, we know that they're comfortable playing Aiden O'Connell because they did last year. And, I think that if things continue, they'll give him some time to start and further evaluate and see if he can jumpstart things. But like you said, Minshew is not a franchise quarterback. He's not a guy you're getting to build around for the future. But he was your bridge guy. He was the free agent guy that you went out and got, and you'd hope that they're able to kind of be more of a functioning team on offense this season. Now, I don't know. I will say one big loss that they had, and I can speak from experience watching the Giants as a fan. Coleman Brasillo has been really good as an offensive line coach for the Giants.
Yeah.
The Giants aren't a good team, but their offensive line through 3 weeks has looked the best that it's looked in years. They're not getting killed with a ton of sacks. They're able to run the ball a little bit. And I think he's helped a lot. And also Jermaine Illuminor at right tackle has helped. So those are two guys the Raiders don't have up front, but there's still enough talent, one guy up front, one guy coaching. But there's still enough talent there where they can work around that, I think, and make some things happen where they can be at least a little bit better offensively.
Yeah, no argument. All right, let's turn to Dak Prescott. Says he's not going to talk to the media in week 4. You look at what's going on with Jerry Jones. I mean, Jerry Jones talks about himself being a great general manager. Okay, but the CeeDee Lamb deal, the Dak Prescott deal, I saw someone sent me a video of Mike Greenberg of ESPN going off on Jerry and all of his poor management decisions. And there was nothing Greeny said that I disagreed with. He went on and said, it almost appears as if the Cowboys don't want to win. I understand what Greeny was saying. I don't think it's that they don't want to win. I think that they're just completely clueless. What is going on in Dallas? Because there's a ton of talent there, and they just seem to be in free fall. I don't think Jerry will ever fire himself, so I'm not pretending. But what is going on in Dallas?
Well, I think that when you look at getting to the contract stuff, the fact that they didn't extend Dak and CeeDee Lamb, and they weren't really more proactive with these guys early on, led to them having to really pay up later on, and it hampered them for potentially making some other moves to augment the roster in free agency or trades or things like that. So it was a a little bit of a cause and effect thing. Um, Listen, the Cowboys through 3 weeks, they haven't looked good defensively. They have not stopped the run well at all. That's been a particular thing. And, my boss is a big Dallas fan, and he made a good point. Even I think he might even before week 2. He said the Dallas defense, as talented as it may be, there's a front runner nature to them. If they can get up and they can rush the passer, well, then they're the bullies. They're, Micah Parsons, they're dancing, they're doing this, whatever, and they look great. If they fall behind and they're getting teams running on them and forcing the issue, they back off and look like they don't want to compete as much. Now, the Cowboys on this week, they play Thursday night against the Giants, who they've beaten, I think, 13 out of 14 times. It's a game, even on the road with them struggling, it's a game they should win. It's a game they better win because after that, if you look at their schedule, I'm going to pull it up real quick because I was stunned at it when I looked at it the other day. After that, their schedule gets really challenging. They play the Giants on Thursday night. Then they got to go to Pittsburgh. We know how good Pittsburgh's defense is. Then they go home and play the Lions. The Lions, again, looking like a really solid contender in the NFC. Then they go and play the Niners. The Niners are not 100%, but they still got a loaded roster, and they've handled the Cowboys in the past. Mm-hmm. Then they got to play at the Falcons, which not a great team, but that's not an easy place to win. Oh, yeah, and then they play the Eagles again and the Texans. And then you got an improved Commanders team. So this is a roster. This is a team that they better win Thursday because things could really spiral if they don't. And even if they do win Thursday and they're 2-2, they shouldn't be too overjoyed because then they got to rest up and get ready because they got a little bit of a mini gauntlet coming up that can decide their season. If they don't win, 4 or 5 of these next 6 or 7 games, they might not be in the division race come, December.
All right, I want to get into a different subject, and it's Bill Belichick. Mm-hmm. I think this guy, now, this, I have a great respect for Bill. I kind of know a little bit of the side of him that isn't as gruff. I think he's done a great job letting people see who he is, and I think there's no doubt he's going to be coaching again next year. What are your thoughts on Belichick?
100%. I think he's really surprisingly, it's hilarious, a good fit in the media after, having such a, a terse relationship with the media over the years. But he's really, really fun to watch, break down tape. You could see how immense his football knowledge is and how he sees things. But I think he ultimately has that itch he wants to scratch to get back to coaching. And I think that the situation for him is he's not, if I were to guess, I don't think he's going to want to go somewhere that needs a really big overhaul because he is 73. I don't know how much longer he's going to coach when he goes back to do it. I think he's going to want to go somewhere that has a little bit of a foundation in place where he can then make it his own over the next few seasons and, contend. Who fits that bill? Would the Eagles fit it if they keep, they struggle and they get rid of Nick Sirianni? Obviously, everyone's talked about the Cowboys. The Giants.
Let me give you a name. Let me give you a name. What about the Jags?
I was just going to say the team that everyone's focuses on the NFC East with the Cowboys, the Eagles, and the Giants. The Jags are a sleeper under the radar team because that's not a roster that is barren. It's just a roster that it's just a mess down there. I think Trevor Lawrence doesn't look like what you expect him to look like. This is a team that, started 8-3 last year and was in the playoffs in 2022, and it's all fallen down after that. Shad Khan wants to make a splash. I could see that. I think the Jaguars, I'm not predicting anything, but I do think that's a team that's being slept on for him as a potential suitor.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason to be sleeping on that. And in fact, I think that's got great legs. Let's talk finally about Tua. Obviously, he wants to play. Shannon and I were at dinner um, this past week with some very close friends of his family, football people. Um, and I will never betray them in what they told us. But my whole point is, I think the kid needs to retire. I have so much respect for him as a human being, as a person, wonderful kid. But sometimes you got to protect people from themselves. I'm going to be very blunt. I have affinity for Tua that goes beyond football because of some mutual friends like these people Shannon and I were at dinner with, and because of his time at Alabama and my connections to Alabama. I don't want to ever see the kid play again. I think we will, but I don't want to see it. It's too disconcerting to me. Your thoughts on Tua? If he wants to play, we know he should. It's a free country, but man, it's just it. To be quite frank, it's scary. I'd love your thoughts.
It is, and I think that I think obviously we know he's had several concussions, and I think the thing that makes it scarier is that two of the more frightening ones happened on national TV in games where everybody saw it. The one against Cincinnati and the one in week 2 against Buffalo. Um, I was watching the Buffalo game and I see him take off, and in a split second, I'm thinking he better slide, and he didn't. And then you see what happened. Um, I just, to me, you can only protect yourself so much. You're going to get hit at some other point. Um, you're going to have to try to run again at some other point. Now, can you slide yet? But to me, if he comes back, which I think he's going to try to, I think he's going to want to play again. The risk is too great. You're going to get another concussion. You don't know when it's going to be. The damage is going to be irreparable or something, down the line that really harms you. To me, I'd rather see him. Listen, he's proven everything. He was a 5-star recruit. He proved he can win and be a national champion in college at the best program. He proved he could be a good NFL starting quarterback. It's just his body, it betrayed him. It just, it was, some of it's bad luck. Some of it's just the nature of the game and the nature of the way he plays. I would like to see him kind of take a step back and say, I'm going to hang it up. I know some people I talked to that are just Dolphins fans said they'd rather see him sit out and lose the rest of the season and be bad than have him come back and maybe have the team be competitive again, but him risk hurting himself down the line.
Here's the thing to me. I made this comment on a national show this week, and a fan goes, "He's just after the money." He's made exponential wealth.
Mm-hmm.
He plays in a state with no state income taxes. He's great with his money. This has nothing to do with money. He'll never be able to spend what he has. And to me, this is the biggest concern. It has nothing to do with money. It just has to do with what you want in your players, a love of the game. Matt, 2 quick things. What's your prediction for Sunday with the Raiders taking on the Browns?
My prediction is take the under, because I think it's going to be a defensive battle. I think the Browns offense looks like a mess. The Raiders offense has not been what we've expected the first few weeks of the season. I think it's going to be, I'll go 19-17 Raiders. I think they squeak one out, but I think it's going to be, a old school slugfest.
Great. Tell everybody where to find you on X, please.
You can find me at Matt Hladik 919, at MATTHLADIK 919. And any Raiders fans want to come over and discuss football, I'm always on. And, anybody that's a baseball fan, I'll be tweeting about that a lot now with the postseason coming up.
All right. You can check them out. Thespun.com, THESPUN.com.